Hi, it's Dr. David Greene, founder and CEO of R3 Stem Cell, the global leader in regenerative therapies. All right, so people ask us every day, what is the difference between getting stem cell treatment with R3 in the United States versus R3 in Mexico? Okay, so when answering that question, it's not just one difference between getting treatment in the US versus Mexico. There's actually 5 main differences. So before I delve into what's different between the USA versus Mexico at R3 Stem Cell, let me talk about what is the same. Okay, so in the 8 countries and the over 80 centers that R3 has globally, the same high quality control standards exist that are equivalent or superior to those of the USA FDA. And what do those include? Well, we test extensively for contaminants like bacteria, virus, fungus, as well as endotoxin, and a full slate of disease entities. So in the 27,000 procedures that our centers have performed over the last decade, we've never had a disease transmission, we've never had a rejection of the cells, or a significant infection like a deep infection. Now, another thing that is not different are the quality of the biologics that we use. So when we test for the quality of the biologics, not the safety, but the quality, we're looking at things like morphometry, making sure the shape of the stem cells is pristine for what it should be. We're looking at the viability to make sure it's above 85%. Usually it's above 90%. And we're also looking at surface markers for the mesenchymal stem cells. Now, another thing that maintains the same standards worldwide is the patient experience. Our support staff, our doctors, our patient concierges, they exist to support you in your journey to have a better quality of life. All right? So one thing that you'll notice is everything that we do revolves around your experience. All right, so now let's delve into the differences. Now, the main difference in receiving stem cell treatment with R3 in the USA versus Mexico is price, okay? And that's exactly what you would think would be the main difference, and there are reasons for that. The cost of doing business in the United States is significantly higher than it is in Mexico, and that includes everything down the line: the cost of real estate, the cost of our providers, the cost of the biologics. I'll get into that in a moment, okay? So there is a significant price difference. It's typically around 30%. Now, another difference is that the regulations for regenerative biologics in Mexico are different than they are in the United States. Allow me to explain. In Mexico, the FDA entity equivalent is called COFEPRIS, and they do allow our lab to culture the stem cells. Another word for that would be to expand the stem cells. That is not allowed in the United States. So when we do that in Mexico, we're very careful to do it in a very controlled manner, and we only go at a maximum of the 5th passage, the 5th generation, if you will. And what that means is that the International Society of Stem Cells says you shouldn't go past the 6th passage because it could affect the potency, the quality of those stem cells. So we make sure to go below that. Many of our competitors get their biologics from labs in Mexico that go way beyond that. Now, that's not the purpose of this video, but I do want to point that out, is that is one of the main differences between R3 internationally around the world versus our competitors, okay? Now, when you talk about the USA, we're not allowed to expand the stem cells at all. All right, that would turn it into what the FDA calls maximal manipulation, and that would turn it into a drug. So we limit that process to Mexico. So when you go to Mexico and you need a lot of stem cells, like 200 million, 300 million, it's much more cost effective because in Mexico we can expand the stem cells maintain the high quality of those mesenchymal stem cells and do it at a much more cost-effective, affordable way. Now, another main difference between receiving treatment with us here in the US versus in Mexico is that in Mexico, you have the opportunity of receiving stem cell treatment with cells that have never been frozen. They're not cryopreserved, okay? So what that means is that our chief science officer will remove those stem cells from the incubator that morning and then wash them and prepare them for your treatment, and they're not cryopreserved at all. What's the benefit of that is that basically they're 100% viable. Now, when we do cryopreserve, they're still very potent, but we do lose about 5 to 10% of the viability. So patients absolutely love that because every single cell that you receive is live and viable and potent and pure and ready to do its job in your body. Now, another difference when you receive treatment in Mexico is that you have the option of conscious sedation. What that means is we don't put people to sleep in Mexico, like general anesthesia, but conscious sedation can be very beneficial for those who have, say, a needle phobia, or those who have maybe dementia and they get very agitated when people are trying to do treatments on them. That can be very helpful. And for children who are receiving treatment with us for autism or cerebral palsy or other, issues like Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, having the option for sedation makes all the difference because children don't feel the treatment, they don't remember it, but they're still basically awake. Right? It's conscious. So we do full monitoring. We have anesthesia machines that do all the blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation. So we've done this over 1,000 times globally, and it's short acting, okay? So, the child is sedated, and then the treatment happens, and the treatment usually is done within 30, 45 minutes max, and they wake up within 5-10 minutes from the sedation. They're quick-acting medications, and like I said, we've done this many, many, many times, over 1,000, in fact. So that's a great option at Mexico and our other international clinics, like Philippines, Turkey, South Africa. We have that opportunity. Now, there are some additional options in Mexico that we do in the United States, but kind of very limited. So for instance, if you have a neurodegenerative disorder, it's very, very helpful to get stem cells intrathecal, which is basically what I refer to as a reverse spinal tap, all right, through the lumbar spine, because that's one of the safest ways for us to get millions and millions of stem cells safely to the brain, right? Because when you give them through an IV drip, yeah, that's also very safe, but the blood-brain barrier limits the amount of cells that can get through to the central nervous system. So the intrathecal application is very, very safe. There was a recent meta-analysis, and I did a video on this. They pulled together around 20 clinical studies looking at the safety of intrathecal application of stem cells, and it was completely safe. There were virtually no side effects, or very, very minimal side effects from the intrathecal application. Some patients do get a little bit of nausea. Some may have short-term vomiting or whatnot, maybe a headache. But other than that, there were no infections. There were no dural leaks that persisted. All right, so nobody needed a blood patch. It was incredibly safe, and we've seen the same thing at our international clinics with our highly, highly skilled anesthesiologists. All right, so those are the main differences between receiving stem cell treatment with R3 in the United States versus in Mexico. All right, R3 has over 80, let me say that again, 80 centers in 8 countries around the world. We do a free consultation for all of them. Visit us online at r3stemcell.com to get a lot more educational information, and our YouTube channel has over 1,000 educational videos. Call us today to set up your free consultation at +1 for the USA 844-GET-STEM, or email us at info@r3stemcell.com, and we'll contact you quickly to get you set up. Thank you.